yes. A lot of the editing was very choppy. Like you just like scenes were inserted and taken out, like where you're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. And I thought the pacing of this movie was great. The story was great. Like you felt it move along. I thought the second act kind of like slowed down a little too long for me. Mm-hmm. But it's an origin movie, and you gotta see exactly like her journey, and which is also I liked it because they explained. They didn't just show action because it's a superhero movie.
Yeah.
So I love the pacing of this movie. The pacing was great. I hope for Aquaman and the next solo movies they get maybe some of their pacing ideas from this movie.
Yes.
Because it's as long as they don't do the choppy like quick edits. I don't like that, but the pacing was great. Definitely, I think that would be it for my pros.
You know, one other thing I think to your point too is it's a good standalone movie.
Yes,
you know,
it's in the universe.
You do
only really in the beginning and in the end when it shows like it's pretty much her telling her story,
right?
But you see of course the Wayne Enterprises. He gets her the picture, and he's like, "Thank you." She's like, "Thank you for giving me this picture."
Right.
Like and then he's like, "Oh, I hope to hear the story."
Yes.
About how this. And it's like, she told the story, but to us.
Yep.
Which is what I liked. It was like a good flashback, fast forward type moment that I thought fit.
And it's a unique story. This is unique. Like, usually the origin stories are, I don't know, sometimes. Yeah. This was a good, unique telling of this origin story.
Yes, it was.
It was a open to close chapter story. Mm-hmm. Great, loved it.
A great chapter of her. And it did remind me of Captain America the First Avenger. I would say it's better than Captain America the First Avenger. I would say
it's way better.
Way better.
Yeah.
Which is kind of good. It looks like she got a couple of the story beats of that movie because it's a time period of World War I, of course. And it's like, she did great, man. This movie, I still can't get over it. Like, it's a great movie.
It's a great movie. I agree.
And it takes DC out of this rut that they were in.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And we'll get to that. Of course,
yeah, we'll get to that towards the end. But I guess we could start going to a couple pros, a couple cons, which is kind of hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little hard.
Yeah.
So, building on that, I do have a couple of things. Building on the fact that it's a standalone movie, and you know the beginning, you know the end. I think one of the things that I didn't like was she was never in trouble. She was never in danger. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you knew the outcome, you never felt like she was ever in danger. Yeah. And she never felt like she was never in danger. And I don't care when she came up against Ares, it was never like he was an actual threat to her. Yeah. So to your earlier point about these villains who were throwaway villains, he was not even threatening, and so it's like you go into this final battle scene and you don't even feel like it's a final battle scene because you already know the outcome. And you should, as a comic book character and a movie fan and everything like that. But there should almost be this epic battle where will she recover and how will she overcome? At this point, it was kind of like I never felt like she was actually in trouble. Yeah, you've kind of felt like, for me at least, where she was kind of distracted. Like, I felt like she sees Steve Trevor going. She's like, what's going on? You know? Like, I feel like she wasn't it wasn't like a Ares versus Wonder Woman. Right. It was like something's going on in the sky. She's like trying to focus on the sky, but then Ares is coming at her and telling her this story. And I felt like with Ares, I was like, is this Magneto? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, he's just throwing metal at her. Right. Which I hated because they did that same thing in X-Men Apocalypse. Mm-hmm. Throwing metal, throwing random metal. And then there's a random power shield that just disintegrates everything. And so it just never felt like she was in actual trouble. Yeah. She never had to overcome anything. Mm-hmm. And she was never tested. She was never tested. Mm-hmm. And he even said that. He was like, I could have killed you earlier, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. Why not? Why not? Why would you let her rise to power? Yeah. Like when he could have gotten to her earlier and molded her. He could have crushed her or molded her. Yeah, I think because he wanted to see how far she could get by herself. And he said, he wanted to bring her on, me and you, versus the world. But he could have grabbed her and then influenced her at that point. Mm-hmm. Where she was still fresh. Where she was still naive, like you said. Yeah, I know what you mean. And the other thing is, like, the other, I think, and I shouldn't have said that earlier about the plot holes. The other thing that they didn't really answer is why was Wonder Woman never able to go back to Themyscira? I can't even pronounce that right now. I'm just so pumped about this movie.
I did not understand that
They
either.
didn't really tie that up, and that's just a little
you can never
something,
come back.
right? You can never come back once you leave. Why not? And maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe because she killed Ares, and so now there's no reason for that to exist, right? Because Zeus created that only to protect her until she could fight it. You know, so I wouldn't necessarily. That's a bad. I think that's just
like
a question that I had.
Yep,
that's definitely not a bad. You know, again, to touch on that too. I think we talked about this, but the villains. Again, she was never in danger. I didn't like the way they did Ares. He wasn't menacing at all. He wasn't scary at all.
It was kind of weird because like David Thewlis. When they show that flashback scene when he was younger, it was like, did you just Photoshop his head onto a younger guy?
That goes to my point.
I would, because when that happened,
CGI.
Exactly.
There's too much CGI. I think Patty Jenkins right now, she's great at realism and detail, but when you get into these epic fight scenes and battle scenes, I think that's where she has room for development because that's where she put Gal Gadot in the center of the screen, but then it's all CGI explosion or these things going in the background, and you lose sight of the detail behind it. It's just Wonder Woman standing, growing in power and size and strength, but there's all this flame and other things going on back there, and you kind of like, oh yeah, that's CGI. It's just her standing in front of a green screen or a blue screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
kind of takes you out of it a little bit.
It takes you out, and I think that's where that's the only area I could ever see her having room to grow. And maybe she'll never want to do these kinds of movies again. She did phenomenal otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm nitpicking.
Of course. There's nothing very glaring out of this movie that you're like, I hate this movie or hinders like what you think about this movie.
No, because it's a great movie. So all these cons for me are nitpicks.
Yeah, of course.
Actually, no. There is one thing I did not like. I don't blame this on Patty Jenkins. I did not like the looping for Ares. At the end, when he's full blown Ares and he's got his metal suit on and he like grabs his helmet and turns it into like a 300 Spartan helmet, right? And it's all this looping where you hear his voice like echoing. You remember that? Like his voice was all echoed, and that's looping. Like that's
it kind of sounded like a Bane type.
Yeah,
like,
but it's like and I don't like that when it doesn't sound like it's supposed to sound menacing, but again, he was
trying too hard.
He was trying too hard to sound this menacing, and you could tell it didn't match his voice. Like you couldn't see his face, so you couldn't even see his lips moving when he was talking. So it was just like somebody in a speaker going off somewhere. It was like bad looping for me. I didn't really. I thought that was cheesy and non-threatening.
Yep.
And to your point, again, it just came to this thing where it was a throwaway villain.
Yep.
She was just never
forgettable.
She was just never in real danger. The whole movie, she was never in danger. And you kind of knew that because you saw the ending in the beginning, and you saw the beginning and the end. Right? You know, catch 22 there. I mean, other than that, I don't really have anything that I just did not like. Like it was so
it's very
good.
Those
are nitpicking. I don't like the looping. I think throwaway villains are common among just comic book character movies right now. This is not unique to Wonder Woman.
Yes.
And bad looping is just something you see within the industry right now when you have a villain who's over CGI.
Yeah.
It just happens. So it just happened to be here as well.
Yep.
I'm going to call it out every now and then. Otherwise, I think she did, phenomenal
movie.
Phenomenal movie. So how about I'm going to kick it back off to you, Elvis?
A lot of our cons are the same.
Okay.
I'm not going to go into too much because I felt like we just went into it mostly. The villains with Ares, Dr. Poison, Danny Houston's character. Nobody was well defined. Nobody was like, you're like, okay, who's this? Who's the main threat? Who's the second threat? Like Dr. Poison, out of all three of the villains, I kind of didn't like at all.
No.
She just couldn't. I felt like she was in a totally different movie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, she's just like creating like this weird like fart gas that's supposed to kill people, and I'm just like, that's not working for me. I'm like, you belong in maybe like a Captain America First Avenger.
Exactly.
Something like that.
I completely agree.
So, and Danny Houston's character, where he was like, he would take the gas and inhale it, and he would become like a little super strong. I'm like, what is this? Like, winter, like, super serum right now?
Yeah.
Are you getting into that territory?
Yeah. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I was like, come on. But, and they didn't explain it.
No, they did not.
You're like, okay, he's taking this gas. What does it do? I was a little confused with that.
A very good point.
So with Ares, David Thewlis, it fell flat.
Yeah.
Like they were trying to build it up the entire movie. She's like, I gotta stop Ares. She thinks Danny Houston's character is Ares. He's obviously not. I think everyone saw that coming. And then David Thewlis, you see him as Ares, and it's just like, oh, I'm like, don't. Like, I could see when it was coming, I'm like, don't tell me you're Ares.
Yeah.
I'm like, if this is Ares, it dropped my score a little bit for this movie.
Yeah, when he showed up in the tower and all of a sudden he's like just magically there.
It was just so random.
Yeah,
they tried to do it as like, okay, a twist, but you don't see too much of him.
Yeah.
Maybe if you saw him doing more great things, all you do is see him in a couple boardrooms and helps out Chris Pine, and after that, I'm Ares, and it's like, okay,
it's supposed to be like this mastermind, like
Ares / Magneto. Honestly, it was just so crazy because I'm like, he's just throwing metal.
Yeah,
like you should have like kept it with like the what was it, like lightning that he had.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it with that. The metal, like maybe do it to create his suit, but after that, just throw it away. Don't be throwing random metal at Wonder Woman. You know she's not. That's what, like with your point, you never felt like she was in danger.
No, she wasn't.
Which is like, I understand because it's like an origin, but it's like, especially that it's an origin, you want to see her rise. You want to see her fall, and you want to see her rise. And I felt like with the villains, they could never make her fall. She was always on top. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, to your point, I think with that theme of Ares was, what is that saying, like the devil's greatest trick was that you never knew he existed or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
That's what this Ares character was supposed to like play off of, that whole theme, right? Like you never knew he existed.
Yeah. So that was definitely a pretty big con for me. But it's another con I would say was that fits into the villains also was the CGI.
Yeah,
like with the metal, with like the flames and Wonder Woman and some of the scenes, like I'm like, she looks a little rubbery. You know, it looked way too fake.
Yeah,
and I was like, it took me out a little bit. But what kept me in was the story, the script, the environment. So it's like, it's nitpicking still.
It is, because that was like maybe what.
Yeah,
5% of the whole movie.
Yeah,
right?
it's hard to nitpick this movie. Right. It's hard because it's a great movie. Mm-hmm. But I would say for cons, that would be it. Honestly.
Well, one thing actually you reminded me of. I wonder, was Ares her true adversary? And I'm gonna go introspective here. Be ready for this. Mm-hmm. Was Ares her true adversary, or was it the fact that she got a final? Like, her real adversary was her realizing human nature was not what she thought it was going to be. When she killed Ares, it was, human nature is human nature. Mm-hmm. And, like, maybe that was her biggest adversary. Because us as guys, we look for comic books as, like, here's the main bad guy, you got to kill him, and that's the adversary, right? Yeah. So maybe for her, I don't know. Maybe we should ask a woman's perspective on this. But maybe that was her overarching theme was, I have this view of human nature and people, and they're all good. Yeah. But now I killed Ares, who was not really a threat to me. The real threat is actual human beings and human nature that I don't understand. Maybe, I don't know. I'm going way deep here, but like...
It's definitely, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Because it goes in with... I feel like it's what Chris Pine said. Mm-hmm. It's what you believe in.
Right.
Do you believe that mankind can be greater? Mm-hmm. And I love that theme throughout the entire movie. Like, you have Ares, that, like, pretty much in most of the movie, he's non-existent. Right. And it's Wonder Woman finally realizing that mankind can do better. Yeah. Mankind is better. They're not like, which is what kind of like what the villain, where Ares was just like, he didn't have, his motivation wasn't that great. No. It's like, they're doing this to themselves. It's like, okay. Well, it looks like you're powerful enough to kill him.
Yeah, and what would happen after you kill them all? Just you and Gal, you and Wonder Woman.
They show this flash, like they show this weird scene where it's like grass and it's like Adam and Eve type.
Right. So what's the point of that?
Yeah, but it definitely, Ares, I don't think was her adversary. I think her adversary was the thought of mankind. Can they live up to it? Because on Themyscira, you get everyone warns her, they don't deserve you.
Right. That's a good quote.
Yeah. So then she even said it to Chris Pine, which is what made him leave. But it's like,
that's where those two conflicted. Remember, that's where they split.
Exactly.
Right? They had an issue on that. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, they don't deserve you, but it's she's like, no, they do. Like, we all deserve each other. They kind of, I like that theme that they did.
Yeah.
That's like, we can be destined for more. We have our faults. We make mistakes all the time, but that's just who we are.
Yeah.
But as long as what you believe in is great and there's always a greater good, then that's the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? But I'd say definitely that, like what you said.
Yeah. So, speaking of which, I actually had